I know, I know you've been coming here to Melbourne for a long time to this tournament, more than 20 years, and I'm just curious sort of what you make of the evolution of this place and the vibes of this tournament. There's been a lot of talk about they're smashing attendance records constantly, and there's also complaints on the other side that it's kind of overcrowded and it's hard to get into courts, and things have gotten maybe too corporate or too commercial on certain different sides of this tournament. So I'm wondering from your perspective as a veteran of this place who's seen the years go by here and just lots of different tennis angles, like what you make of that sort of push-pull between excitement over growing and the idea that something's being lost by maybe being overstuffed or getting too crowded, too corporate, too commercial, too sort of profit-centric at times.
Having too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have. I think there are much worse problems to have. So I think every tournament wants record-breaking attendance and ticket sales, and that's what I've been hearing actually this year and the last couple of years for most of the slams and tournaments. So I mean it's a good sign. I mean obviously we want more attention, more people coming and wanting to watch the tennis live and follow it and live stream, etc. Obviously I don't know the possibilities of further expanding the facilities or not. I'm not obviously familiar with that dynamic, but I like what I have seen as evolution of this tournament. I like when the tournament is nurturing a mindset of always wanting to improve and get better in terms of facility, providing better conditions for players to practice, play, recover, and that's what I've been seeing. I mean, first time I came over to Australia, for the juniors, 2003, I think, or something like that, 2005 for the...
Take a moment to visualize this situation. What if I told you that your biggest enemy might be achieving the highest level of success? That you can be imprisoned in a cage with no way out by the very renown you have spent your entire life striving for. The tale I'm going to tell you isn't meant to be caught in a sensational headline. Your head will spin as you delve deeply into a reality this intense. Here, we are discussing Novak Djokovic, a man who has witnessed every aspect of the tennis world, revealing for the first time what actually occurs in Melbourne behind closed doors. His recent admission about the complete chaos around young Filipino sensation Alex Eala is going to completely change your perception of professional tennis, so fasten your seatbelts. What exactly is going on here, then? Is a full-scale organizational collapse imminent? Or is this simply the result of excellence reaching a tipping point? The worst part is still to come. Why does Djokovic genuinely believe that the biggest issue anyone could possibly face is crushing crowding? Let's dissect this entire situation event by event.
I remember we were using the Gym B, as it was called, which was across the road. Forgot what the name of that AFL club is. Essendon, maybe? Something like that. Sorry? Oh, Collingwood, sorry, my bad. I know there's a big rivalry, so I apologize. So they were allowing the Australian Open to use their facilities and the bigger gym, ice baths and everything. And then obviously there was an expansion of the facilities with the National Tennis Center, with indoor courts, more practice courts, better recovery, more locker rooms, better facilities for the player dining. So all positive signs, to be honest. I think Australia has always been one of the best in that. So I don't see any negatives there. And now it's really about how do you find balance and how do you manage the amount of people that is entering the premises, and whether I saw the other day with Alex Eala, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's big interest. So things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court, yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through, so and obviously the first couple rounds the schedule is so packed, the big courts with big names, it's difficult, it's not easy to manage that, but again, it's a good problem to have, to be honest. Let's just imagine if there's a lack of people coming, or that stands are empty. That's a bigger problem. I mean,
the discussion began with what appeared to be a straightforward inquiry about how things have changed and how the mood feels right now. However, Novak's reaction took us to a realm that was quite different and back in time by 2 whole decades. Shut your eyes and join me in imagining this. We are discussing a young Novak from 2003 or possibly 2005. Knowing where this all happened is more important than knowing the precise year. Forget about the modern facilities and amazing glass structures that you see everywhere these days. Are you curious about the actual history of where tennis greats used to work? They were working out in a simple gym. Yes, it is correct, we are discussing a typical gym that was formerly owned by the Collingwood Football Club. Are you able to comprehend that? They had the taro from across the street, and future world champions were practically sharing training gear and ice baths there. You can hear this amazing blend of happy recollections and utter awe at how drastically things has changed since then when Djokovic reflects on those early days. We progressed from those quite humble beginnings to the current state of affairs. The National Tennis Center has indoor courts that have a futuristic appearance. Players can enjoy dining options that rival the most upscale restaurants on the world, as well as recovery facilities that look like they belong in science fiction. Australia wasn't merely making little advancements. They were building something that looked like the empire of tennis. However, this is what no one discusses. Every empire that expands to this size eventually encounters the same unavoidable difficulty. It becomes overflowing with people. This leads us to the topic that everyone is quietly discussing, the elephant in the room. Has the crowding gotten out of control? Has this competition devolved into a commercial beast that is practically eating itself alive? Do the grievances continue to mount from all sides? The crowds have grown to the point that many people find them very overpowering, and fans are always annoyed at how hard it has become to actually enter courts. However, Novak's retort struck like a well-timed winner later on when he immediately addressed this. His remarks were brutally honest and icy. He referred to it as an issue. Of course. He then added something though, that took everyone by surprise. He said, "It's actually an incredible problem to have." Yes, you heard properly. Djokovic honestly thinks that sold-out stadiums and tickets that vanish seconds after they go on sale aren't indicators of an emergency. This is the ultimate dream scenario in his imagination. Consider it from the other way around. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to watch games with largely empty stands and the sound of a pin dropping. The true disaster that keeps Novak awake at night is that. Not the never-ending lines of people lining up to enter, but the possibility that no one will arrive at all. But from this point on, the narrative becomes even more intense. When they began discussing Alex Eala, the undisputed star of Philippine tennis, the entire conversation became extremely heated. The name that's dominating every discussion in the sport right now. Her predicament involved more than just a lack of preparation and organization. Nobody in their wildest fantasies could have foreseen this fan explosion. Djokovic presented the difficult reality that some decision-makers were frantically attempting to avoid acknowledging, based on decades of experience that you just cannot purchase or fake. You could definitely make the argument that the scheduling was poorly handled, he stated bluntly. A direct admission was made there. They had placed a celebrity on one of the smaller courts whose fame spans an entire country. Try to picture what truly transpired in this situation. Thousands and thousands of people are attempting to cram themselves into one area at a time. While the folks in charge of the show are frantically trying to decide what to do, the entire nation is supporting their champion. However, Djokovic views this entire tumultuous event in a totally different way. In all of that chaos, he perceives the birth of something genuinely unique. She is speaking on behalf of the Philippines. We're talking about a huge country that has been starving for this kind of glory, he notes. In their sporting history, she has emerged as the most significant figure. All of the stress, the intense crowding, and the complete mayhem around her matches. That is the best evidence that tennis is still popular. The sport is still very much in existence today. Managing these enormous crowds during the tournament's opening days might be a logistical headache, particularly since all time slots are fully occupied and the prime courts are automatically designated for the biggest known names. Managing this challenge is utterly brutal. However, as Novak states, consider what would happen if no one was interested enough to go. The actual catastrophe would be represented by that situation. Here is Djokovic's bottom line, presented with the frankness that only someone who has experienced everything can provide. When something expands this quickly, turmoil is inevitable, and evolution hurts. However, the alternative to all of this craziness is to watch the sport gradually become irrelevant. What we are currently witnessing is nothing less than a new golden age, in which long-standing customs are colliding with enormous influxes of new admirers from all over the world. This is the query I want to leave lingering in your mind. Would you rather fight your way through enormous crowds to watch history being made in front of your eyes, or would you prefer the calm and quiet of a stadium that is half empty and where you can hear every footstep? Give that some serious thought, because your response could decide the future of the entire sport.